time for the Ron and Brian Podcast. Get ready to fill your ears with the latest news, politics, current events, and whatever else we feel like talking about this week. And now, your hosts, Ron and Brian.
Well, good evening, everybody. It is Sunday night. It is 8 o'clock Eastern time, and it is time for episode 274 of the Ron and Brian Podcast. However, unlike usual, not joined by my partner in crime, Brian, this week. I know that there have been a number of rumors circulating out there as to why Brian would not be available for this show this evening. So we will attempt to debunk some of those rumors throughout the evening. I mean, he has told me that he needed to go overseas. He needed to go abroad for the weekend to take care of some personal matters. So I will trust him on that. For those of you who have said that he has been extradited from this country for his crimes against humanity, that is in fact not true. I have not seen any evidence of that. And also, we have seen comments that the last person that anyone saw him with this past week was Chris Hansen. Again, apparently also untrue. We have not been able to verify that. But as it is a solo show for me here this evening. Hopefully you all enjoy it. Hopefully I can do at least 60 minutes this time around, or else face the mockery from Brian, as opposed to his hour and 45 minutes of just vague ranting that he does when he does his solo shows. So let's get things rolling, as we often do each and every week, with Drink of the Week.
Drink of the Week.
Na zdrowie.
Salud.
Drink of the Week.
Sláinte.
Drink of the week. Drink of the week. Drink of the week.
It's kind of sad. I'm used to being able to watch Brian dance with me during the Drink of the Week theme song, and there's an emptiness. I'm not gonna lie, when I don't get to see him break out his dance moves for Drink of the Week. But regardless, the show must go on. This week, I did manage to find a non-pumpkin beer, a fall flavored beer from our good friends at Cape May Brewing Company. This is their Oktoberfest beer. It is a Marzen style lager, rich and complex. This amber colored lager is smooth and clean due to a cool 50-degree fermentation, mellowing as it lagers. Well balanced with a hint of hops presence, Oktoberfest is focused on the grain bill of Vienna, Munich, Cara Munich, Pilsen, and Melanoidin malts. That is quite a mix right there. It is clocking in at 5.8% alcohol by volume. Drink local whenever you can from our good friends over in New Jersey, Cape May Brewing. This is their Oktoberfest. I mean, look at that amber body. Looks delicious. Let's take a sip here. Oh, that's good. That is a good Oktoberfest beer. So go out and support the good people at Cape May Brewing. I'm going to take another sip real quick. Speaking of New Jersey, it is a state that Brian often will brag about being a resident of, but yet at the first opportunity, he leaves the state of New Jersey to go overseas, betraying not just the podcast, but his new home of the state of New Jersey. So apologies, not only to the podcast audience, but to the entire Garden State as well. In the meantime, it's Beef of the Week.
Ron and Brian's Beef of the Week.
So you would think the obvious beef of the week would be podcast partners that betray you, that leave the country, that don't check their calendar and let you know ahead of time that they're not going to be here. But I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be salty. I'm not going to be petty. I think we can all hopefully find it in our hearts to forgive Brian, to love Brian again. I mean, he's going to need to earn our trust. He's going to need to earn our love. And hopefully he can start that if he decides to return next Sunday. But my beef this week is actually with the burdens that are sometimes placed on the shoulders of us by our spouses. We are asked to do things that we don't morally agree with, that we don't ethically agree with. And I will find myself in that situation next Saturday. If Brian was here, I'd say, Brian, ask me where I'm going to be next Saturday at 11 a.m. And he would say, Ron, where is it you're going to be next Saturday at 11 a.m.? Well, I'll just get it out in the open now. I will be in Plymouth meeting with my wife because she has requested that I join her in a viewing of the Taylor Swift concert film that apparently is being released next Friday. She could not find tickets that were desirable on Friday evening. So we will be going to one of the early showings on Saturday. And I love my wife and I support her. We lift women up on this show. We don't drag them down. So I will be sitting next to her watching the Taylor Swift film, which apparently is literally playing at every screen at this Plymouth meeting movie theater, every showing. Allie is volunteering. She volunteers as tribute to go to the Taylor Swift film, and I appreciate that. But this is one of those things that you just have to do. I know, Susan, she doesn't like the pro wrestling, but I don't make her go to it. I feel maybe this is kind of payback for when I made her go see They Might Be Giants down at the TLA in Philadelphia prior to the pandemic. Standing room only, no seats, because I thought we could still do that because we are in our 40s. Have come to find out that most definitely I need a chair when I go to a concert. I need leg room. I need elbow room. I need easily accessible bars and bathrooms. So I will admit it was a bad call on my part many years ago. And I feel she's finally getting back at me after all these years. So, but next Sunday, for all you lucky people, I will be able to give my review of the Taylor Swift concert film. So that is exciting. I know you will all be waiting for that. Speaking of Taylor Swift, you know that we love a good conspiracy theory here on the Ron and Brian podcast. And her attendance at the New York Jets Kansas City Chiefs game the other week has now led to a conspiracy theory, as I'm sure everybody saw because the NFL put it up on the screen so many times. On September 30th, Taylor Swift was the star attraction at MetLife Stadium as she went to watch her rumored boyfriend, Travis Kelce, take on the New York Jets. That was the night the celebrity box that she sat in also had Sophie Turner, Hugh Jackman, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds. And apparently people were saying that this is a PR stunt and that she specifically chose the New York Jets game to allegedly bury reports of her CO2 emissions. Thanks to SEO, if anyone researches Taylor Swift jet right now in Google, the results will point towards links, photos, and stories related to her and Kelce attending the game, and not to her use of private jets to get her where she wants to go. She used, there was apparently a lot of negative reports back in July of 2022. A website named Yard released a list of celebrities with the worst CO2 emissions ranking. Taylor topped the list with 170 private flights from January to July. She spent 22,923 minutes in the air, which equals 15.9 full days, leading to a total of 8,294 tons of emissions. It was 1,184 times more CO2 than the average person's annual emissions. Pretty impressive, if it is true. And that's the great thing about a good conspiracy theory, is there has to be that potential of it being true. There has to be that potential of it being effective. But the genius is, even if she didn't plan it that way, it still worked out that way. Like, you literally have to go to page 4 or 5 on Google now to get any results for Taylor Swift Jets, other than her attendance at the Jets game. So well played, even if it was or wasn't intentional. Also well played, us, as usual, with our NFL locks of the week.
Locks.
If Brian was here, obviously I would be congratulating him on another perfect weekend. Last week, he took New Orleans at home plus 2.5 points against the New England Patriots. They did not need any of those points, winning the game outright 34-0. And then also Denver versus New York Jets. Brian likes to hate on the Jets from time to time, but this time he wagered on the Jets plus 3.5 against the Broncos. Again, the Jets did not need any of those points. They won the game outright as well by a score of 31-21. Again, just an extremely impressive performance by Brian, despite him not being here tonight. But I will give him credit for one thing. Even though he did not make plans to be here this evening, he did make plans to make sure that we know who his locks of the week are.
Hey, Ron, I wish I could be there in person to congratulate you on another week going 2-0. You sat there, you looked at the Commanders against the Bears. You sat there and said, this is an easy one. Commanders were laying 5.5. You saw right through that one. Ravens minus 2.5 over the Steelers. That was a joke to you. You knew exactly what to do. How do you keep doing it, Ron? You're 10-0. I can tell you right now, that's what they're talking about over here. The international sensation that is Ron and your locks of the week. Just incredible. And I think it's something that people will always remember you for, that you went 2-0 this week. One day I will learn your secret. As for me, what I'm liking this week in the NFL, it's pretty simple over here. 49ers minus 3 over the Browns, and Jaguars minus 4.5 over the Colts. Those are my locks of the week. Cheerio.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Brian. Those are his locks of the week. And for me, next weekend, I like Detroit minus 3 at Tampa Bay, and the LA Rams minus 4.5 at home against the Arizona Cardinals. So again, we did see Brian there. He is he does seem okay. The rumors that he needed to leave the United States to get a knee replacement due to the obscenely high medical costs in the United States, clearly not true, as he seemed to be standing fairly well and enjoying whichever part of overseas that he is in. So safe travels back home whenever you decide to join us again, Brian. I know, I'm trying not to be bitter. I hope you all are as well. Big news, obviously, over this past week was the removal of the Speaker of the House in the U.S. House of Representatives, flashing back to just a mere almost, 6 months ago. It took 15 rounds of voting for Kevin McCarthy to secure his position as Speaker of the House, and 269 days for him to be voted out of that position. That motion to vacate had only been voted on once before, back in 1910, in a failed effort to remove Joseph Cannon, a Republican from Illinois, from the speakership. Now, the ironic thing is the ability for just, one lawmaker to trigger a removal vote stemmed from a deal that McCarthy had to make with Matt Gaetz and other GOP hardliners to win the speaker's gavel in the first place. We talked about this a little bit last week after the government shutdown crisis was averted, that McCarthy had spent a ton of his political capital to get that, and obviously kind of bit him in the ass with this. The House Freedom Caucus soured on McCarthy during the negotiations to avert the government shutdown, with Representative Dan Bishop of North Carolina first telling reporters that he was considering bringing the motion to vacate to the floor. After getting a stopgap measure passed that extended government spending for 45 days by gathering Democratic support, McCarthy faced additional criticism from members of the Freedom Caucus, and Gaetz introduced a motion to vacate this past Monday. Now, there was a move to table that motion. It was brought forth on Tuesday to try and stop or delay the vote. That was voted down 218 to 208. When the motion to vacate was voted on, it passed 216 to 210, removing Kevin McCarthy from the seat. All House Democrats voted for the motion and were joined by Republicans Andy Biggs, Ken Buck, Tim Burchett, Eli Crane, Bob Good, Nancy Mace, Matt Rosendale, and of course, Matt Gaetz. So far, the only individuals to publicly announce their interest in the position are Jim Jordan, who has since been endorsed by Donald Trump, and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. McCarthy has said that he won't run for Speaker again, but does currently plan to run for re-election to his House seat. And yes, it was how many days? 200 and how many days? It was 269 days ago.
Nice.
Thank you for the comment, Billy. I'm not quite sure why the House Democrats felt this was a good idea. I know they were upset that McCarthy had apparently made some promises to Joe Biden that they felt that he went back on during this government shutdown negotiation. But I don't know who they felt would be a better person to have in that role. Certainly don't think Jim Jordan is a better person. Steve Scalise, also part of the MAGA Republican side. So it really seems like Democrats voted against the best interest of their own party, as they do. And really, at the end of the day, not quite sure that this is a benefit for the country as well, because, now the work of the people needs to stop while they have to now fight over who's going to get that speakership. And there'll be votes going on this week. I believe Wednesday, they said, would be the earliest. GOP House members now want to change the rules around this motion to vacate to make sure that a small number of renegades don't have that amount of leverage that we saw this past week. And Matt Gaetz has indicated that he is willing to negotiate on that point. As part of that conversation, Democratic Representative Ro Khanna laid out a 5-point program of reforms that he'd like to try and get pushed through. One is to ban money from lobbyists and PACs to congressional candidates. 2 is to ban members of Congress from trading stocks and ever becoming lobbyists. Term limits for members of Congress, term limits for Supreme Court justices, and an ethics code for Supreme Court justices. In response to this program being laid out, Gaetz tweeted, "How high would you like the motion to vacate threshold to be? Because I'll basically give you whatever you want on the MTV for this stuff." Now, the hang up there is that any term limits for Congress and for Supreme Court justices can only be changed based on a constitutional amendment. But could there be other parts of that plan that get enacted? We'll see. A lot of people are, saying that the Democrats like a lot of these, but can't get them through. But again, if the Democrats and the House Freedom Caucus was able to agree on some points, maybe we can get this pushed through. I feel term limits on a lot of these positions for Congress and for Supreme Court justices are justified. I mean, it is, we are not the same people that we were when the founding fathers wrote the Constitution and wrote all of these laws and these rules. I mean, if you go back to 1776, the average life expectancy back then was 35 years old. So I don't know that they ever envisioned having senators that were 90 years old and still serving, having presidents that were 80 years old and still serving. I mean, back when the Constitution was written, basically it was, farmers would go, they would serve in Congress for 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, and then go back home to work on the farm till they died of tuberculosis at like 42. So I don't know that it's necessarily relevant that you can keep running over and over and over again. They had the foresight to limit the president to 2 terms. Why can't we limit the other divisions of government for their term limits as well? Who knows? So we will keep following up on that. I'm sure come next weekend, if we have a Speaker of the House elected by then, we will talk about it. I say we, assuming that, Brian is actually going to return and join me here on this podcast again. But we'll see. Everything's really up in the air. Another rumor to debunk, he did not leave the country to go over and assist Hamas with their attack on Israel. But that was also big news over this weekend. It started Saturday morning around 6:30 a.m. in Israel when the first sirens started to warn of incoming rockets in central and southern Israel. Hamas fired what would end up being thousands of rockets at Israel, striking even major cities like Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. At around 7:40 Saturday morning, the Israeli Defense Forces confirmed that Hamas fighters crossed from Gaza into southern Israel. The Israeli authorities asked residents of those towns to hide in their homes. And then at 8:15 a.m., very rare air raid sirens went off in Jerusalem, which rarely gets hit by rockets because of the Iron Dome defense system that Israel uses. Rumor is that Hamas was actually using paragliders to go over and evade the Iron Dome defense system. No confirmation, but that's what they're saying. Unclear if any rockets hit the center of the city, but witnesses said that rockets had landed in the wooded hills on the city's western edge. After 2 hours after the first air raid sirens, it was evident that Hamas had taken hostages in southern Israel and fired more waves of rockets. Israel declared a state of alert for war. And then about 2 hours later, Israeli fighter jets started to strike their first targets in Gaza. At 12:21, Israeli military sent troops into southern Israel to reclaim towns taken by Hamas militants. And then at 1:46, Israel said that it struck all 21 buildings that they were aware of that housed Hamas military operations. More than 40 hours after militants from Gaza surged across the border, Israel's military said its forces were still battling gunmen on Israeli territory. At least 700 Israelis are believed to have been killed, and more than 413 Palestinians are dead. There has been a lot of conjecture, with Israel having the defense forces that they do, the Iron Dome system. How did Hamas get the information that they had that was clearly evident for them to evade a lot of these defenses and help coordinate their attack? A lot of people are saying that they got that information from Iran, and then Iran got that information from Russia. And where did Russia get that information from? Well, a lot of people are saying that, the confidential files, the top secret files that were found at Mar-a-Lago, potentially could have contained secrets about Israeli defenses. So that has led to another conspiracy theory, which again could have some legs to it. But I figured I'd play the video because this is Nobody Dies Like Me on TikTok. He explains it a little bit better than I can.
I want to talk about this, but I don't know how without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, because I fucking hate conspiracy theories. I don't buy into them, but I'm going to tell you something that I remember. First, a quick recap. It is being reported that the terrorist group Hamas has committed a surprise attack out of Gaza, gunning down over 250 civilians, and over 1,500 have been wounded. Of course, developments are still ongoing in this entire thing. But so far it's been a surprise to everyone how Hamas has been able to circumvent the defenses that Israel has. And according to V, they say it's assumed that that information was given to Hamas by Iran. Iran would have been given that information by Russia. And the question is, who told Russia? I don't know if you all remember back in August of last year when Donald Trump was being searched at Mar-a-Lago. And among those documents that Donald Trump had was listed in the media as the defense information and nuclear capabilities of one of our allies. And for months afterward, all over the media, and especially TikTok, I heard people familiar with classified information say that they could almost guarantee that that information was on Israel. This is where it's going to turn into a bad movie. Because now that we have no Speaker of the House, and the House has no one to help designate aid going to Ukraine, who would it benefit if all of a sudden the U.S. had to send all of its energy and its money and its aid and its weapons to Israel and therefore would not give any to Ukraine? It would heavily benefit Vladimir Putin so that he could conquer Ukraine and then move on to a NATO country and start World War III. But if this opens up a new problem for the United States to have to devote time and aid and weapons to Israel, Ukraine is going to be left behind, and Russia's going to storm in there, and World War III will be close behind.
So a cheery thought for this Sunday evening, but again, you have to wonder what kind of validity there is to that way of thinking. I think World War III, might be a bit extreme, but then again, with the way, the world is going, who's to say? So we'll keep following that. We'll see what other news outlets are saying about that. You know who loves a good conspiracy theory? Is Brian. But unfortunately, Brian's not with us this weekend. He has betrayed us. No truth to the rumor that he bolted from his group tour of the DMZ and ran into North Korea, shredding his clothes off his body while screaming about Daddy Kim Jong-un. No truth to that. I know, again, there's a lot of inaccurate information out there. And I think we all know Brian a little bit better than that. Almost forgot to do story of the week. Brian not being here, throwing me off my game. But we always love to find a story that just speaks to us, that just speaks to our hearts. And we bring it to the table to make sure that it does not get missed. For this one, again, going to New Jersey. New Jersey delivering the goods this week from Liberty Township. A New Jersey man is facing several charges after authorities say he intentionally crashed his vehicle into a police station, all while blasting "Welcome to the Jungle" by Guns N' Roses. Now, there is a video of him crashing into the police station. Unfortunately,
it was all caught on camera. The song was not. Police said the man intentionally drove his car into the building. The suspect now faces charges including terrorism, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Authorities say he previously crashed his car into the garage of another home.
So just great video there. Just gets out first, holding his fingers up high triumphantly, and then, giving up to the cops. The funny thing is the cops if you watch the video, and again, if you're listening to the podcast, I apologize, but you really should be tuning in live, or at the very least watching this on our YouTube channel. The police just kind of walk out and are just like, all right, this dude drove into our police department. Definitely expected that. Definitely not surprised that he did that. So the man, identified as John Hargreaves, was arrested, obviously. As they mentioned, he intentionally crashed his SUV into a garage door of a home also in Liberty Township, and again faces several serious charges, including terrorism, which carries a maximum sentence of life in prison. Gotta love New Jersey. I thought Brian loved New Jersey, but he betrayed New Jersey, just like he betrayed the rest of us. Again, I feel like I'm getting hung up on some of this stuff, so I will try and just kind of plow forward and not think about it. Going out to Wisconsin for an interesting story this past week. A man illegally brought a loaded handgun into the Wisconsin Capitol, demanding to see Governor Tony Evers, and returned at night with an assault rifle after posting bail. So the man, who was shirtless and had a holstered handgun, approached the governor's office on the first floor of the Capitol around 2 p.m. Wednesday. He was demanding to see the governor, who apparently was not in the building at the time. The man was taken into custody for openly carrying a firearm in the Capitol, which is against the law. Weapons can be brought into the Capitol if they are concealed and the person has a valid permit. But this individual, who has not been named, did not have a concealed carry permit. He was booked into Dane County Jail, but later posted bail and then returned to the outside of the Capitol shortly before 9 p.m., 3 hours after the building closed, with a loaded assault-style rifle and a collapsible police baton in his backpack. He again demanded to see the governor and was taken into custody. And I think if that just maybe doesn't encapsulate the issues of mental illness and gun control in this country, I don't know what does. But this individual was held on more charges and was also put away for some psychological testing and evaluation. Hopefully he will get the help he needs. But just, again, you get bailed out and then you go back and you just decide, I'll bring my shotgun this time, and a collapsible baton. Good times had by all. Took a beating on Twitter this week when they tweeted out some congratulations to, that's just a small picture right there, but they tweeted out congratulations to Katalin Karikó and Drew Weissman on their Nobel Prize in Medicine for their work in mRNA. Quickly, readers added context to this tweet, in that in 1995, UPenn gave an ultimatum to Karikó due to her lack of finding funding for her research. They told her that she can take a demotion and a pay cut or leave. Quote, "It was particularly horrible as that same week I had just been diagnosed with cancer," said Karikó. "I was facing 2 operations, and my husband, who had gone back to Hungary to pick up his green card, had got stranded there because of some visa issue, meaning he couldn't come back for 6 months. I was really struggling, and then they told me this." She finally left Penn for BioNTech back in 2013 after Penn refused to reinstate her to tenure track following the publications that would lead to the Nobel Prize, deeming her, quote, "not of faculty quality." So she wasn't of faculty quality, but apparently when she was recognized on a world stage, that was enough for UPenn to, try and claim her accomplishments. And thankfully, they were ratioed and dragged appropriately on Twitter. And shockingly, they have still left the tweet up as people continue to beat up on UPenn in every other tweet they have on their Twitter account, or excuse me, their X account. A woman is suing Disney Emma McGinnis visited the Typhoon Lagoon Park in 2019 and claims that she suffered severe injuries on the Humunga Cowabunga slide. McGinnis was celebrating her 30th birthday with a ride on the aquatic attraction. It's a 5-story drop into a pool when, quote, she became airborne and she was slammed downward against the slide, according to her lawsuit. The suit said that her clothing was, quote, forced between her legs in a painful wedgie, and that water was violently forced inside of her. The pain continued after landing in the pool, and as she stood up, blood began rushing from between her legs. McGinnis was hospitalized for permanent bodily injury and vaginal lacerations. The complaint further stated that her bowel protruded, quote, through her abdominal wall in a hernia. Filed by attorney Alan Wagner on behalf of McGinnis and her husband, the complaint accuses Disney of negligence, alleging that it does not warn women of their increased risk of injury from the 214-foot ride. Quote, because of their particular anatomy, the risk of injury for a woman is far greater than it is for a man, and she is seeking at least $50,000 in damages. On its website, Disney World calls the Humunga Cowabunga, quote, the ride of your life, promising to give visitors a surprise ending. And that is most certainly what Ms. McGinnis seemed to get. Apparently, the ride operators need to enforce the fact that if you are going down the Humunga Cowabunga ride, you need to cross your legs at the ankles and hold them, because apparently the force of the drop can basically push your bowel through your abdominal wall. This is why I don't like theme parks. I don't go. I mean, number one, I don't like crowds. I don't like people. I don't like hot weather. I don't like standing in line. But most of all, I like my bowels being right where they are. Like, I really enjoy them just being, tucked in my abdomen, safe, not having to worry about them. That is chef's kiss, 100% what I'm into. Coming up later this month, friend of the podcast, Dave Hill, has his new book release coming out. It is now available for pre-order in the US, Canada, and everywhere fine quality books are released. When he appeared on our podcast back in, I want to say May, he talked a little bit about his book. So we're going to take a little Ron and Brian flashback right now.
The book is called The Awesome Game, and there's a subtitle, but I don't have it in front of me, and I can't even, I haven't committed it, because the reason it's not in my brain is because, I'll tell you, I could look it up. The reason is because we kept changing it a little bit. And that's why I don't have it committed to memory. But it's called The Awesome Game, and it's about hockey, and it will be out October. It's about hockey and, hockey adjacent topics. There's a bit of memoir in it. There's a bit of travelogue, but there's mostly hockey. There's a lot of hockey. And it's an amazing book, as you can imagine. And I went all over the world. I went to Kenya. There's a team there called the Kenya Ice Lions. I played with them. They're now dear friends. I'm going to go back. So that's out October 17th. Penguin, Random House, Doubleday Canada will be putting it out in Canada. And then, I think other countries, I have to look. I should know some more details than I'm giving you. But in America, it's going to be Triumph Books is publishing it. So this is my first time having multiple publishers as part of the global assault of usually I've just had one in the past. And so yeah, it's going to be cool. And I'll do some appearances as part of it. All in America and Canada, and then I'm finishing up. And it's a great. If you love hockey, you'll love the book, and if you don't love hockey, you'll love the book. And if you don't even like sports, you'll love the book.
Yes.
Because this is a dangerous thing to say as a man who has just completed a book about hockey. I don't like sports. I like sports, singular, and that sport is hockey. And so the book is just kind of about what's drawn me to this magical sport throughout my life, and why I agree with people that don't like sports, that most sports suck. And I talk about all this in the book. And football fans will be offended by what I have to say in this book. Baseball fans, very offended. No, I don't, give anyone shit for liking these other sports. But my point is that hockey is the superior sport.
All right. So again, friend of the podcast, Dave Hill. Also, if you go on his website, he was offering signed copies of his book available for pre-order. For those of you who may have forgotten what Brian looked like, hopefully you appreciated seeing him or hearing his voice. That's back when Brian used to participate in the Ron and Brian podcast. So a lot of throwbacks there, a lot of memories going back there. And again, a lot of rumors going around. A lot of people heard that he had been hired as a 24/7 dog whisperer at the White House to stop Commander Biden from biting the White House staff and Secret Service officials. Again, not true. And even if it was, it would appear that he would already be out of a job. Commander, the 2-year-old German Shepherd, who has been at times more conflict animal than a comfort animal, has been dispatched, I guess to a farm, probably not Camp David. But he apparently was an aggressive animal. There was a conservative watchdog organization this past summer that said that they had uncovered reports of at least 10 instances of aggressive behavior. 2 people who had been briefed on the matter but did not want to be identified said that the real total is more than like 2 or 3 dozen. One previously reported biting incident in which a Secret Service officer required hospital treatment was so bad that it spilled blood on the floor. Again, don't blame the dog, blame the trainer. So Commander will no longer be roaming the halls of the White House. You know me, I'm a dog lover. I'm not going to blame the dog. I'm going to blame the people. Going out to Colorado, there was a disturbing story that started to unravel this past week. There's still more information, I think, yet to come out, but it involves a funeral home called the Return to Nature Funeral Home. There is an investigation into more than 115 bodies found improperly stored in this funeral home. It's a funeral home that apparently offers, quote, green burials. The remains were found, like we said, in the Return to Nature Funeral Home in Penrose, Colorado, which is about 30 miles south of Colorado Springs. The coroner's office was contacted by the Fremont County Sheriff on a report of an odor coming from the funeral home. After receiving a warrant, they searched the building to find the bodies, quote, improperly stored, which had created a hazardous scene. Fremont County Sheriff Alan Cooper described the scene as, quote, horrific. Authorities searched an area of more than 2,500 square feet. The funeral home offers, as they say, green burials, which is burials without embalming fluid in a biodegradable casket or nothing at all. Literally just take your dead body and throw it in a hole in the ground. Much like if you were to bury a dog. Just throw the body in there. The company also operates a facility in Colorado Springs. It previously offered cremation services, but stopped in July 2023, probably due to CO2 emissions. Didn't want to get the same reputation online that Taylor Swift did. No arrests have been made yet. It is unclear as to if any crimes have been committed, but improper handling of a corpse is a crime, and it seems like they're teeing that up The Colorado Bureau of Investigation and the FBI are assisting the Fremont County Sheriff's Office with the investigation. You know who likes a good? No, I'm not gonna do the Brian joke again. I'm just gonna try and get through this episode without beating up on him anymore. But we will beat up on the state of Florida because that is one of those states that we just love to beat on. There was recently a baby tossing story from Florida where 2 women were arrested in Florida after aggressively handling a baby and tossing it back and forth, according to spectators, like a toy. I mean, I'm not good with kids, but I know that's wrong. 20-year-old Sierra Newell and 19-year-old Brianna LaFoe were aggressively handling the child, throwing him in the air and flipping him upside down, according to an affidavit obtained by Scripps News. Police were able to confirm the abuse of the baby from a video taken by a witness who was struck by one of the women. Police said the footage showed the baby aggressively swung up and down, shaken by the ankles, and thrown back and forth across a 4-foot distance over a concrete street, according to the same affidavit. We're now going to throw things over to Ron and Brian Florida correspondent Luana Munoz.
The witnesses, people told the women to stop tossing the baby. She's tossing it and started recording the incident on their phones. That's when witnesses say the woman with the baby got more aggressive.
And so in return, she started throwing the baby a little bit more aggressive, in my opinion.
This video angle then shows the woman with the baby walking up to the person recording her and hitting them.
And then what she did that really surprised me, then she put the baby upside down, and it was like, hold up, like this is getting way too far.
According to the arrest affidavit, the woman held the baby by its ankles and shook the baby. All of this happening over hard concrete.
So, I mean, it's Florida, folks. The child was taken to a local hospital with red marks on its back. X-ray results showed signs of a possible broken arm. Both women faced child abuse charges. LaFoe is also facing a misdemeanor battery charge and is being held on $3,500 bond. Jail records show Newell has been released. So apparently you can be underage, drunk in public, tossing a baby around, and get out of jail relatively easily. Also taking place in Florida this past week, federal authorities have arrested a 77-year-old man for allegedly buying more than $1,800 in erectile dysfunction drugs without a prescription and intending to sell them in the massive Central Florida retirement community called the Villages and elsewhere. He was actually arrested in the Villages, where he lives alongside nearly 80,000 full-time residents, which was featured in the 2020 documentary Some Kind of Heaven. The defendant, who has not yet been named, has pled not guilty to the misdemeanor charge and agreed to have his case heard before a magistrate judge instead of a jury. If convicted, he faces up to a year in federal prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Well, again, and I wasn't going to say it, but I think we all know Brian is a big fan of erectile dysfunction pills. Although he goes more blue chew, and he does acquire them legally, so we have to give him credit for that. I'm not going to. I'm going to give credit where credit's due, I guess is the best way to put it. So Brian, I hope your erection is doing fine wherever you are. I think we all can get behind that. I'm sure a lot of people have seen the story this past week about the Airbnb squatter out in California. We've got a photo of the 2 people involved. So it is a legal dispute between Sacha Jovanovic on the right and Elizabeth Hirschhorn on the left. Hirschhorn has continued to stay at Jovanovic's $3.8 million property in Brentwood, even though her stay was supposed to end in April of 2022. Hirschhorn, who has lived at Jovanovic's guest house overlooking LA for the last year and a half, has argued that she has a right to stay. Her attorney, Colin Walshock, said Hirshhorn does not have to pay rent because, as provided by law, the unit was never formally approved for occupancy, and the rental contains an unpermitted shower. So that's really the one thing. Everyone's kind of been pointing fingers at this lady, but this rich guy decides to just build a guest house on his property, doesn't get permits from it, doesn't get it zoned, doesn't get anything approved, and then decides to just start renting it out. Ironically, Hirshhorn qualified for protections under LA's new rent stabilization ordinance because she has stayed at the property for more than 6 months. A judge has so far dismissed an eviction lawsuit filed by Jovanovic, ruling that under the new law, Jovanovic must have a legal reason to evict Hirshhorn or else pay for relocation assistance. A city housing investigator also told Jovanovic that given the permitting issues with the unit, he had to withdraw his eviction notices until he could prove the guest house was in compliance with building code. Airbnb confirmed Hirshhorn's account has since been deleted, but that because the agreement to extend the stay did not occur on the booking platform, the company considers the situation a third-party matter. You know, Airbnb just loved washing their hands of that situation the first chance that they could. Jovanovic offered $2,000 to Hirshhorn to assist her with moving expenses wherever she may want to go. She, in turn, countered by asking him for $100,000 to leave the guest house. And the lawyer, her lawyer, rightfully so, is just unapologetic about it. Like, he basically, you fucked up, and it is going to cost $100,000 to make my client go away. So good for her. I mean, normally we are not fans of squatters here, but he seems like a shitty individual in and of itself. And so I'm okay with this. I would think Brian would be okay with it too. I'm not going to speak for him, but since he's not here, I will. My goodness, it's a lot of pressure trying to do more than 57, 58 minutes. We have made it to 52. I do have a bunch of stories still to get to. So hopefully you're going to stick around for a few more minutes while I try to get to them before we wrap things up here. I thought this week that I was going to have a story that would finally show that drag queens are the problem, because that is one of our more popular segments, but the drag queens are the problem. Unfortunately, all I could find is yet another public official causing trouble, this being a police officer in Wichita, Kansas. This mugshot right here is from, let me find this guy's name, Joel Womochil. He recently had 34 total counts of child sex crime charges filed against him. He is a former Kansas police chief. El Dorado police on August 15th arrested him after receiving a tip from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. He was the police chief for Burns, Kansas. The town's mayor confirmed that he resigned last month after his arrest. Court records show that he is facing charges on 24 counts of sexual exploitation of a child and 10 counts of aggravated internet trading in child pornography. Court documents show a recent request to raise Womochil's bond from $100,000 to $250,000. In the state's motion to modify Womochil's bond, the prosecution said that it, quote, amended its information to include several off-grid charges and several more possessions for child pornography. But again, it is the drag queens that are the problem. Another popular segment that we get to from time to time here is a little something that we like to call fuck around and find out. It is always enjoyable when we get to highlight another social media influencer out there. One by the name of iShowSpeed has a YouTube channel, and he was apparently attempting to do an experiment called the elephant toothpaste experiment. It is basically you form a foamy substance due to a reaction between hydrogen peroxide and iodine in water. Apparently, what iShowSpeed did not realize is that it also causes a very noxious gas to be released. So he tried this experiment on his YouTube channel. It starts to foam over. He doesn't think it's working. And then again, this is why you really need to watch live or watch on the YouTube channel. As the experiment starts to move along, you see the white smoke starting to billow from this elephant toothpaste experiment.
Oh my God. What the fuck? Oh my fucking God! It's not doing it. Wait, yo. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Ah! Oh my
And then
God.
he can't breathe.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
So thankfully, his videographer Slips with a Z was later able to confirm on the YouTube channel that he was okay. Fire department had to come and give him oxygen, but thankfully no severe damage was done to his lungs. This isn't the first time that the fire department had to be called due to I Love Speed's antics. During 4th of July celebrations last year, he almost set his room on fire after lighting a Pikachu firecracker on his YouTube live stream. So just a fun fact, don't mix hydrogen peroxide and iodine in a room with no windows, doors closed in. Don't mix bleach. I mean, you almost don't feel bad for people. I mean, I know I don't feel bad for people when they don't have a basic knowledge of chemistry and then almost kill themselves. I mean, is that wrong? Is that wrong of me to say? Perhaps. Allie asking the real questions. What am I watching? I didn't watch a ton this week. I am continuing to watch Invasion on Apple TV. Still showing to be a very good show. I watched the end of Encounters, the final 4th episode about UFO encounters. I would say the 4th episode was the weakest of the 4. And I also attempted to watch the documentary on who killed Jill Dando, who was a BBC commentator, presenter back in, I want to say it was the 2000s, but it wasn't that entertaining. It really seemed like it's a 3-episode docuseries, and it really seemed like one that could be wrapped up in one episode, and they just really felt like they just needed to drag it out as long as humanly possible. I'm a little disappointed in myself because I know season 2 of Loki is now available on Disney TV. And I have not gone to watch it yet. Season 1 was amazing. So I'm very excited to watch season 2, and hopefully I will get some episodes in by next weekend's episode. I did rewatch the movie The Mist, based on the book by Stephen King. I think it came out in 2007, 2008. Still one of the better adaptations of a Stephen King book, and still one of the darkest endings to a movie that I think you will see. I'm not going to say spoiler alert because the movie's been out for 15 years. So if you haven't watched it yet, that's on you. But basically, if you don't know the premise of the movie, this mist covers this small town. There are creatures inside the mist that just kill anyone that's out there. And so the whole story kind of revolves around these people trapped in a supermarket. Eventually, a group of 5 of them manage to get to the one character's car and try to drive out of town. They run out of gas. They're still trapped in the mist, and they think, the world's over. It's the main character, his son, and 3 other people. He's got a gun with 4 bullets in it, and they all realize they feel like their life's over. So he says, well, I'll figure out a way to finish myself off. and he shoots and kills the other 4 people in the car, including his son. And like literally within 5 minutes, the mist starts to clear, and the military comes through with survivors. So just, I mean, the ending of the book was not as dark. So they really took the movie to like a whole new level, without a question. So if you've not watched The Mist, you can either not, because I've given up the ending to you, but it is good now that it's you know, spooky season. I also saw a preview. They have a horror movie on Peacock called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It is a literal story about Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, who apparently terrorized Christopher Robin and a group of other people. Apparently, Winnie the Pooh very upset that Christopher Robin grew up and moved away from 100 Acre Wood. So it looks bad enough to be good, but I don't know that I can actually sit through it. Maybe I'll make Brian sit through it. Maybe that will be Brian's punishment for not being here this past week. Again, he is overseas. I will tell you, he's in London. He decided to just take a little jaunt across the pond, and you know, has some stuff to do over there. So that's fine. You know, he likes to call himself a man of the people, but he moves to the upwardly mobile suburb of West New York, New Jersey. He leaves people behind in the 5 boroughs, and then it's just like, yeah, I'll just jump over to London for a long weekend, and then I'll come back, and then, you know, I'll just pick up on the podcast, whatever. I know I said, yeah, exactly, Janelle. Thanks for the invite. I mean, with the kind of money that Brian pulls down working on Wall Street, you would think that he could take all of his friends along, maybe charter a private jet, just something along those lines. But instead, he leaves us behind. He leaves me, his podcast partner, behind, and just kind of does his own thing. That's just the way it is. A couple more stories to get to here. This next one is a New York City college student sentenced to a year in a Dubai prison. This photo here. This is Elizabeth Polanco de los Santos. She is a student at Lehman College in the Bronx. She was handed her sentence on Monday in the United Arab Emirates for allegedly assaulting and insulting an airport security guard during a flight connection in Dubai over the summer. She had spent nearly 3 months effectively trapped in Dubai with a travel ban issued against her. She apparently lost about $50,000 in expenses and lawyers' costs because she had to pay for her own hotel stay while she was unable to leave Dubai. Her ordeal began on July 14th as she and a friend were heading home to New York from a vacation in Istanbul. Their initial itinerary had them connecting home through Paris, but they changed the flight to transfer in Dubai so they could see the famous city during a 10-hour layover. While passing through security, Dubai airport staff requested that Los Santos remove a waist compressor she was required to wear after a recent surgery. Shown to a private booth, female staff members removed the compressor, but Los Santos's mother said that the staff members were rough and hurt her daughter's still healing surgery scars. Los Santos said that she gently touched her arm to guide the employee away from the scars, and then started crying to her friend for help. She was then detained as a security guard filed a complaint against her, and she wasn't allowed to leave until she signed a form written in Arabic. When she returned to the airport later to catch her flight of the New York, she was informed of the travel ban filed against her and forced to remain in the country until charges were heard against her. After she had to stay in hotels for weeks, a judge allowed her to pay about $2,700 US and leave, but Dubai prosecutors appealed the ruling, and she was finally sentenced to a year in prison on Monday. Seems excessive. The U.S. State Department did not respond immediately to requests for comments, but did say in a statement that they are aware of the detention of a U.S. citizen in Dubai. Don't go to Dubai. Don't go to the Middle East. Again, I think the only thing I dislike more than theme parks is traveling abroad. And this is why. I think there are some countries that we're on good terms with. I think there are a number of countries that we're not on good terms with. I don't know why people feel the need to go to like North Korea, South Korea, Iran, Iraq. Just seems like a bad idea. Just seems like there are safer places you can go. Look at that. I'm not even able to finish my beer during this broadcast because, you know, I got to do all the talking because Brian just couldn't be bothered with being here. Well, I did more than an hour. I promised Brian I would do that. But we're going to get ready to wrap things up here. Just a reminder, we are now on Cameo. At the very least, you know you'll get a video from me. I can't speak to my partner, but if you're interested in getting any kind of cameo from us, we are at cameo.com/Ron Bryan Podcast 8939. As we've mentioned before, we're giving away some free cameos so people can try it out. So go to Cameo, make the request. It's only $10 to make the request, and we will reimburse you for that $10. We just want to get some traction on this thing. That's all we're looking for, is just a little traction. And then normally we would be going to After Dark after this for our Patreon subscribers. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, go to RonandBryanPodcast.com, click in the upper right-hand corner. You can join for as little as $5 a month, but for $10 a month or higher, you can join us on our weekly After Dark episode, which normally starts at 9:30. With Brian being AWOL, we did have to cancel that. And we will start back up again next week. So apologies to our Patreon subscribers. And if you haven't subscribed, this rarely happens. So I would still encourage you to go and sign up and join us next Sunday for our After Dark. So to Brian, we miss you. We love you. Safe travels back to the States. Don't get detained anywhere on the way back. I don't want to have to do another solo show anytime soon. For those that joined this evening, thank you for watching. Thank you for participating. Thank you for lifting my spirits and my burden a little bit. So everybody have a great week, and we will catch you next Sunday.
Thank you for joining us on the Ron and Brian Podcast. We're live each week on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. You can find prior episodes, links to our social media, and everything else Ron and Brian at RonandBryanPodcast.com.